On this week's holiday episode, we look back at some of our thoughts and guests and highlights from the year.
Bald,
Blind,
and buddies.
Timmy C., my blind friend. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you. Oh, before I forget, by the way, does it really get under your skin, or is this just the Fox News, everybody's persecuted thing about this Merry Christmas? Part of the reason I say Happy Holidays is just because I have a lot of friends that are Jewish, number one, and number two is it kind of incorporates all the holidays, Christmas, New Year. It's the holiday season. I always say enjoy your holiday season or something like that. If somebody I know, see in church, for instance, I'll say Merry Christmas to you. But does that bother you, Timmy? Or is that just sort of...
I think I've been in healthcare in Madison, Wisconsin so long that it doesn't bother me so much. I mean, yeah.
The issue was beat out of you,
Yeah.
so to speak. I remember I talked to my one friend years ago, and I said, how are race relations in Germany? And he goes, great. It's been that way since World War II. I was like, good God, dude, that is so wrong. But, he made light of it and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
I just, everyone seems that, I always love Chris, it's like as regular as the waves and the tides and so forth, that Fox News is going to have their, annual, the war on Christmas continues. And if there's a war on Christmas, isn't it fair to say that Christmas won? I mean, literally, it's like the most commercialized, the biggest holiday. I mean, everyone even Jewish people I know have Christmas trees.
But I think that what I think the war on Christmas is diluting out what Christmas is, intended to be from sort of the biblical historical context and turning it into this big commercial enterprise.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't that the same thing with damn near every holiday? I mean, isn't Valentine's Day a Hallmark invention? These kinds of things for commercialism. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's also a psychiatrist, by the way, and he's a priest. His favorite day of the year, bar none. I never call him on Christmas Eve. I never call him on Christmas. I call him the day after Christmas.
Boxing
It's his favorite
Day.
day of the year. Yeah, it's his favorite day of the year. It's
Yeah.
the furthest point away from Christmas. He can't stand the commercialism associated with it, and I get it. But he loves Easter, the religious and symbolism and so forth, and I get it. I just, for me, Christmas is just a time to be with family and friends, and I do feel bad for people that suffer, and I'm sure you see it as a psychiatrist, people who suffer this time of the year.
Yeah,
Loneliness and so forth, right?
So at work, I tend to wish people happy holidays unless I have a reason to know I should wish them Merry Christmas. So.
Well, do you say to your Jewish friends, Happy Hanukkah?
Um.
Do you know what I mean?
I
Just-
probably would. I probably would. I think I just default to happy holidays for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I this is not me trying to take Christ out of Christmas or any of this other stuff. I mean, people just, and the Christmas tree was a pagan response, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that, it was a piece of nature that you stick a tree in your house. I love every year when we bring it in, the dog goes nuts. And Katie goes, I don't understand why she's, behaving like this. I said, Katie, we're bringing a tree into the house. We're the wackos here,
Right.
It's like, what's wrong with you? So, anyhow, how's everything with you, bud?
Oh, it's good. Yeah, I got a couple days of work this week, and then I'm off for a while, so that'll be nice.
Congratulations to your sons on their good grades. I
Yeah.
understand they did well.
Doing well.
And not to rub it in, but Peter got an A in Spanish, and if memory serves, that was your only A- in college, was it not, Timmy C?
That's
what
correct.
prevented you from having a 4.0?
And I love it that he can rub it in. It's so fun. And he's
That
my
is
son,
awesome.
so he does.
Oh, of course. He is. He's as big a wise ass as you are. That's hysterical.
Yeah.
The one thing I, of course, love having a son. I love having girls, too. I got to experience both in the last week. The specialness of it. With my son, we went to Los Angeles. We do our annual trip out to see a football game. Mm-hmm. Went to Los Angeles, saw the Rams play the Lions. And my brother texted me in the game. It was something like, I think the final score was 48-44 or something. And my brother goes, it's a real defensive struggle there. I was like, yeah. It was exciting. It's very cool. I do not like L.A. I like California, generally. I could live in L.A. These are, again, first world problems. But I was not crazy about Los Angeles. Have you ever been?
I think I've flown into the airport. That's about it.
Yeah, we did all this sort of tourist traps. We did the Santa Monica Pier, and we did the Hollywood sign, and we went and saw the La Brea tar pits.
What's
That's
the deal
very
with the
cool.
tar pits? Why do people want to see that?
It's a naturally occurring thing. It's like oil in the earth. It's petroleum that just, it's famous because it is the reason that a number of animals are extinct, wildebeest and so forth, and woolly mammoths. They would walk in this area and they would get trapped in the tar, and that was it. And these tar pits are so thick and so old that literally it's an archaeological marvel. And it was almost like talking to Indiana Jones while we were out there, because they actually have it on site where, they bring in a historical society to monitor when there's construction going on in that area. And sure enough, they found tar pits, and they were breaking apart this tar pit. And the guy's like, oh, we have woolly mammoth in here, and we have this, and we have this, and this. And like, he was literally using like a toothbrush. Then I said, are you trained archaeologist? He said, I'm in geology and something else. And the young lady that was there with him, and I said, how long is it taking you to break this block down? The size of, say, an average dresser. Mm-hmm. He said, so far it's 3 years.
Wow.
And they just had, and he was going through the list. I mean, it was at least 2 or 3 dozen animals that were trapped just in this little, and I could see bones. Mm-hmm. So that was really, really neat. It's a naturally occurring thing, and it comes up from the earth, and it's where it's basically just history trapped,
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. But LA was fun. I'm glad. But what I was getting at is I really enjoyed being with my son, going to the football game, which is what we do as a tradition. And then the other tradition that I've now started with my girls is they're old enough that they pay attention to what their mother wants for Christmas. So I don't even have to do anything. It's amazing. They'll be like, Dad, you got to go to this store and get this for Mom. Like, my daughter knew exactly what I needed to get. So my dad used to take my sister, and they'd go to lunch, and so that's when we'll spend a day. I'll just knock out whatever I need to get for my wife and buy them lunch. So awesome. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes me look good because now I don't have to look like an idiot because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Right.
So I texted my sister-in-law a couple years ago when Katie and I were dating, and maybe we were just married. This is a bit back, and I said, do you have any idea what your sister would like? And she said, how about cool clothes? I said, why don't you tell me to split the atom? Because I got a better chance of doing that than knowing what cool clothes for a woman is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I remember I was going shopping. My wife was, she was pregnant. And you know how, like, sizes when you're
It's
pregnant?
yours, right? It was yours. You're sure of that, right?
Yes. John?
Yeah.
So,
But anyhow.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to buy maternity, sizes, so I got her like this giant oversized sweater that just like totally didn't fit, and it's like,
and then that becomes, you think I'm fat?
Yeah,
like, no,
my brother-in-law was involved too. He's a good guy, so he helped to share some of the blame. So.
Oh, nice. That is solid. Well, Timmy, it's closing in. 2025 is about to be in the rearview mirror. We're entering 2026, which is unbelievable. And we figured this was a good opportunity. I'll let you lay the predicate for what we're going to talk about today. But before I do that, let's sign off with last week's trivia question. Or I should give the answer. I shouldn't sign off. Give the answer to last week's trivia question. I had asked when the first Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center was. And that was not the same as the first official lighting of the Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center. The answers, respectively, are 1931 and 1933. Why they didn't light the Christmas tree in 1931 or 1932, I do not know. But just kind of an interesting factoid. So it's almost a 100-year tradition now.
That's cool. Yeah, I would have plagued it much earlier with Edison and stuff, but it doesn't.
That's what I... Yeah.
Rooseveltian sort of look to it.
Yeah. So, well, Timmy, tell everybody what we're talking about today on Bald, Blind, and Buddies.
Yeah, so we have done enough to have a clip show. So there's this reminds me of this episode in season 2 of Star Trek Next Generation. It was panned as one of the worst episodes ever, where they're running behind on budget and time, and so they kind of slung together clips and made an episode out of it. So that's what we're doing.
We're running out of time and budget too.
So,
what did you say? We're 151st in the UK.
In the UK, yeah. So if you want to watch a terrible Star Trek Next Generation episode, it's Shades of Grey from season 2.
And they literally it was just an opportunity to string together bits and pieces and so forth.
Yeah. They then helped them catch up, because it was an expensive show for its time.
No, yeah, you already did the work. Yeah, now you're just editing. That's why I love having you. Like, when people ask, how are we going to do this interview with Timmy? And I'm like, oh, Timmy's a whiz. He's got all this equipment because he's blind. I don't understand half of the stuff you do, but it's incredible. So
yeah, and I think this will be a good entry point for people who, you want to recommend, people out there, you want to recommend our podcast, tell them to check this one out, because this will have some of the clips we from our interviews, from our back and forth.
Just this year, right? 2025?
Just this year, yeah.
Okay.
And so some of the highlights are clearly stuff we left on the table for future clip shows, but we'll start here.
Yeah, when we run out, of budget and time
budget
again.
and time.
We'll do it every 6 months.
Yeah.
So, well, and what we're going to do is we're going to alternate. We're going to introduce different segments and clips, and then you're going to play them, right?
Correct.
Germane parts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll leave it all together, but yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, the first one, I will do the first introduction, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's very rare you get to talk to your heroes. And Wes Pritchett, who played linebacker and was one of the three amigos, if you will, on the 1988 championship team for Notre Dame. He, good fellow, he and I still keep in touch. We're going to talk to him again in the new year about possibly expanding our footprint. He's got some connections, and he likes our show and so forth. And by the way, his son, a little bit of a call out for he is a tight end on the Alabama team that won their football game on Friday night. By the way, not to drag down the mood, but James Madison and Tulane, really great stories. Good for them to make the college football playoffs. James Madison was losing 34-6 at half, and Tulane got beat by 31 points. So I'm pretty sure Notre Dame wouldn't have done that. Yeah, but this clip is basically Wes Pritchett, one of my favorite people. He's been good to us on the Ball Blind Buddies show, talking about the last coach at Notre Dame to win a national championship, one Sir Lou Holtz. And he's going to give you some of the lessons that he garnered from Lou Holtz about life, about marriage, and so forth. Just a wonderful, wonderful story. So that's what this one is.
As a young man, what did you take away from that? Like, are there lessons that you've translated that have carried over from those types of experiences?
I would say that, at the time we didn't really understand all these things that he was talking about his three rules, which are do what's right, do the next right thing, and let the people that you love know that you love them or that you care.
Yeah.
That's it. And, it didn't mean that much to me as a player at the time, even though we sort of had a new framework to operate within. But I think if you look at the success of the players under Lou and further later in life, in business, as fathers, as friends, whatever. I mean, I think our success and our kids' success of the guys that played under him speaks volumes. I mean, I think my children are amazing people. They're great athletes. I mean, I'm just proud of everything they do. And they've lived their life hearing me say the things that Lou told me when I was, at Notre Dame, because I wouldn't say that my parents were great people, but we didn't have like a framework for life. This guy plugged it in and said, this is it. Boom, just play in these guidelines. And, looking back at it, I think he was a life coach. Mm-hmm. And, he's still saying the same things 35 years later because they're right.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would say that Lou was extremely transformational. And I would say that, when I don't think it came naturally, but I think when you see it over time, when you hear what he's saying over and over again, and then you do it yourself and you see success, and then you tell your children and they do it and they have success. I don't know. It's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's everything about my life.
Sometimes on the podcast, we surprise each other. We cross the aisles. We don't fit into our lanes perfectly.
Father Jenkins pointed that out, right?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about China as soon as we did this started the podcast, because I think it's important. And in this clip, you will hear us discussing what to do about China. Is it a threat? And John explains how I sound like a liberal. So here we go.
You do. But are you in favor of, for instance, de-investment? There's an argument amongst, and you're sounding very much like a liberal, Timmy, which is surprising to me, that, we shouldn't even engage with China because of their treatment of the Uyghurs and their control of their people and their surveillance state and these kinds of things. Are you as draconian as that? Because, again, that was kind of the Jimmy Carter model. And I'll remind you, Jimmy Carter was a wonderful man, terrible president.
Well, but also Reagan, I think a president who says, Mr. whatever Politburo guy, take down this firewall, right? And let the Chinese people actually know what's going on in the world.
Don't you think that's a little bit of romanticism? I mean, it wasn't just Reagan who ended the Cold War, was it? I know Republicans and Fox News want you to believe that, but the Cuban Missile Crisis had as much to do with it as did, Reagan saying tear down this wall, did it not? But again, it's a long process, right? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We're not going to have a dramatic moment of the fall of the Berlin Wall where China suddenly says, you know what, we were wrong. We embrace capitalism. We're going to let our people run wild, and we're going to stop surveilling and stealing and all these other things. How do you get them to do that? How do you nudge them in the right direction?
Well, first of all, you stop kowtowing, which is a Chinese word, right? Reagan had the backbone to call the Soviet Union an evil empire. And you start there, right?
Okay, so you want to... I think two things can be true at the same time. I will call out the shortcomings of China. I will substantially do so. That being said, however, if I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and I have a market to sell to and they're going to buy my product, I'm probably going to make it okay to do so. No?
See, that's where... So certainly, honestly, that's where I would disagree. I would say there are times...
Sounding like a liberal, Timmy.
Okay.
Like
well, then I'm gonna sound like a liberal. But I think, I mean, if you look back, like we were, going and helping Stalin. The U.S. companies were helping Stalin build tanks. Like their T-34 tank has like a Christie suspension that one of our inventors here in the U.S. developed. Right back in that was used in World War II. So we were building in Russia. Right. And I don't think that was wise either. So there are times you honestly have to turn down the money. Like it's for real. Right?
I think that's a wonderful idea in theory. I think that's a very, very short-sighted argument.
Well, for example, I'll give you just a minor example. There was an NBA star, I forget who it was, who did some I forget if it was pro Uyghur or Taiwan thing.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
And then they made him essentially apologize.
The NBA did.
The NBA did, right? And you know what you can do? The NBA can say, we have freedom of speech in the places we're established, and we're going to stand by that, right? And you're right. It is going to cost money, but sometimes things cost money, and it's worth it.
I didn't know that Timmy had it in him on this raging liberal who wants to burn down the system. I love it. I love that one. And you have a thing about China. I love geopolitics. I love seeing the big picture and so forth. China has some advantages just in its sheer magnificence and size. It's got 4 times our population, yet it's half the size of our economy. It is a challenge. And, in foreign policy, the old saying is it's the search for dragons, and in the absence of one, you create one. I wonder why you're so fired up. Do you have any idea why you get so fired up about China? Do you see it as sort of the Soviet Union part 2?
I think so. I think that's relatively fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, oversimplified to its essence and so forth, but I think that's probably, the challenge that you see, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the next clip, Timmy?
So we cross the aisles. In this brief clip, John explains how he might be okay with shutting down the Department of Education.
Only you, Timmy. Fair enough. I think we solved it, Tim.
We did?
We should be running
Boom.
the education. Hey,
Done.
Are you okay, by the way, with getting rid of the education department? Because as far as I can tell, I happen to agree with that. I'm surprised by saying that, but I think education, very much like a lot of things, is a local initiative that should be handled locally. Here in Pennsylvania, for instance, it's just a cultural thing. The first day of hunting in northeastern Pennsylvania, schools basically shut down. The teachers want to go hunting, blah, blah. I get that. That's okay for me. 1 day a year for that, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But I just think that I'm not sure exactly what the Department of Education does
Yeah.
other than create additional bureaucracy.
You and the rest of America, John.
Well, this is part of the reason I didn't even want to bring this up with you, because your answer always is, yep, destroy the department.
Well, I will say this, though. I think it has some role in especially helping students who need accommodations and with disabilities. And so if that's not, done through the Department of Education, but gets done somewhere in a well, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Right, I got you. Okay, all right.
All right, that's a good one. All right.
That is a good one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and, it's not that I want to shut down the Department of Education. I'm just not sure that education should be federalized. But by the same token, it becomes dicey when you don't have federal standards. It just, One of the things that I get frustrated by is on certain issues I believe in states' rights, and on others issues I don't, or I feel the federal government has more of a role to play. Right. This is one of those ones that I could conceivably concede that maybe the Department of Education causes more. But what did you say? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, nobody knows what it does, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So, well, Timmy, this next clip, I actually get to introduce the next two clips, and I'm excited because, as you know, you studied biochemistry. I studied political science and history. There is a hysterical ad for Uber Eats where Brian Cox goes back to school to get the discounts as a student for Uber. Have you seen this, Timmy?
I don't think so.
It's absolutely hilarious. He goes into his room and he says, "You out." And he's like, "I live here." He's like, "No, get out." And it's just, he's like this, commandeering presence and so forth. Anyway, he's sitting there and he's listening to one kid and he says, "I'm a double major in political science and art history." And Brian Cox looks at him and goes, "You'll make a great barista one day." But anyhow, I was a political science and history major. So, was not a barista. But that being said, I am always fascinated by history. And there are certain stories I can't get enough of. One of which is The Hunt for Bin Laden. Every book that comes out, it's been nearly 15 years now. Every book that comes out, I buy. Every story about it, every documentary done, I watch. And we had the rare pleasure of talking to Gina Bennett and her knowledge. There's two clips back to back. One about her knowledge of safety and security, which is the second clip. But the more important clip is just, this kind of summed it up for me. I think it was you that asked her, right? You said, "What did you do?" Or did I say, "What did you do?"
Yeah.
Okay, I said, "What did you do upon hearing Geronimo for God and Country," which is the famous tagline that the Navy SEALs called out when I had identified Bin Laden's body.
Yeah. No, all right, last question from me. Yeah, last question from me. You hear the words Geronimo for God and Country after he's assassinated Osama bin Laden. Mm-hmm. Was there a sense of relief? Was there a sense of accomplishment? A lot of people talk about, you reach the end point and it's a letdown. Did you celebrate? Did you sort of take your kids to soccer? The mother of five, you probably didn't have much time to sort of enjoy it. Am I wrong? How did you deal with that when you heard Geronimo for God and Country?
I went back to bed.
That's awesome.
Now that is the highlight of our podcast right there. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. So
no, I think. So John, I thought, did you watch you said you watched the Netflix documentary?
Oh, Gina, there is not a thing that has been published on this that I have not read. I know of your friends who you lost. I know, all this sort of stuff. I didn't want to bring this up and so forth, but no. I know the ins and the outs. I'm looking literally as I speak at Mark Bowden's book, To Finish, The Killing of Osama bin Laden, which was sort of the initial sort of discovery of it or an examination of it. I've watched the movies. I've seen the documentaries. I've actually spoken to Admiral McRaven via email. Yeah.
So you know how I feel about this then, because I didn't think we should have. I didn't want to kill him. So.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
That I did not know.
Oh.
You wanted to capture him? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't even want to do that.
Really?
No.
Well, tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no going back from that. But I thought I had mentioned it in the Netflix. I don't remember because, you do these interviews for the documentaries and then it's, years later they come out and I never watch myself. I just can't handle that. But no, I mean, I was a very unusual minority. I was probably the only person in the U.S. government. I wanted to hermetically seal him. What I wanted to do, because let's face it, 9/11 created a massive counterterrorism industry. I had been working in counterterrorism 13 years beforehand, 14 years. I've been working it a lot longer. When I first started in counterterrorism, we still had Soviet troops in Afghanistan, and there were still Red Army factions going around the world killing people. So it was a completely different world of terrorism. So for me, countering terrorism, it's not about your satisfaction. It's about understanding their vulnerability and exploiting the hell out of it. So from my perspective, bin Laden, like any other narcissist terrorist leader, the thing that would torment him the most would be to have no influence and no say whatsoever on his group, the group that he created. To undermine his mythology would have required letting him die a very old and forgotten, irrelevant man. And so what I wanted to do was just put a bubble around Abbottabad.
That was not in the documentary. This guy can explain.
I wanted to just fuck with the communication going in and out of there so that his followers were like, what the heck? He's gone, he's gone crazy. Yeah. And he never knew that was the reaction. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted him to just die an irrelevant, old, decrepit, forgotten man. And one of the things I had told Peter Bergen, because he asked this question years ago, and the day after, when I was at work, a friend and colleague of mine in Afghanistan texted me, and she was like, hey, really bad day for Al-Qaeda, huh? And I was like, yeah, it's bad, but it's not the worst. And she was like, what the F, She's like, what could be worse than, bin Laden being dead? And I was like, well, let me ask you this. And she was like 26, right? So let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of the Baader-Meinhof gang, which was a German terrorist organization in the 60s and 70s? She said, no. I was like, well, the worst day for Al-Qaeda is when one CIA counterterrorist targeter asks another CIA counterterrorist targeter, have you ever heard of bin Laden? And they say no.
Fair.
Yeah. That makes so much sense with the psychology, right?
Yeah.
Being irrelevant, right, is the worst. Otherwise you're creating a martyr, all those other possibilities, right, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And the next one is her expertise. She is an expert, and it was just fascinating to hear her perspective on being a CIA analyst and her viewpoints on safety, security, and sort of just differences in seeing the world. And that's what this is one clip she's going to lead us into here.
Let me start with truth in advertising. I also teach a course at Georgetown University in the Security Studies program that is called Hunter-Gatherer National Security. And I don't know how much you all know about security studies theories, realism and constructivism and all that kind of stuff. Academics, they like to put a name on everything.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have been largely working under a realism paradigm for well over 100 years, mostly in the world, not just in the United States. The idea of rational actor theory and, nation states and...
I happen to buy into it more than not. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, deterrence and all that. All great. I buy into it too, as half of the story. And the reason is because all of that, defense, deterrence, the capacity to overwhelm an adversary with overwhelming force, everything that we think about in terms of national security, protecting the integrity of our sovereignty, our nation state, our borders, our people, our buildings, our infrastructure, all of that we call national security, in my mind, is actually national safety. And it's absolutely important. I'm not saying that it isn't. But safety, in and of itself, does not result in security. So what do I mean by that, right?
I was just going to say, explain that.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You live in a house or a townhouse or an apartment with your family?
Yeah, both of us. Yeah.
Okay. House?
Timmy's in Madison, Wisconsin, and I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
House, yep.
Okay. If your house is burned down, say an arsonist burns down your house, and you all manage to escape, your whole family, your dog, your cat, whatever, your whole family is out, do you cease to be a family because you don't have a house anymore?
Of course not.
Okay.
No.
So what is the security of your family made up of?
For me, it's getting them through college.
Well, it's relationships and purpose
Mm-hmm.
and those sort of things, the soft things.
You want to make sure that they have learned the values that you want them to learn, that they have the capability to survive broken hearts as well as broken arms, that they have the ability basically to thrive and do well when you're gone, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you're supposed to be doing as a parent, I think. And the security of your child isn't just about their physical safety. It's also about their self-worth, their integrity, their autonomy, their freedom to decide who and what they are, what they're going to stand up for, what they're going to advocate for, how are they going to treat other people, how are they going to interact in the world. All of that is also part of security, or maybe it's all of security, depending on how you see things. That doesn't come from safety. If your child has...
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So when you think about it like this, if our national security were merely a function of our national safety and defense, then it really wouldn't matter if we were a communist government or a caliphate, as long as we were physically safe.
And, differences in seeing the world is part of why we're doing this, right, John? And Lisa Ekman contacted us, and she wrote a book, Deprogramming Democrats. And her view of the world changed. She was a Democratic and then a staffer on the Hill, and came to a real epiphany, part of which is being very absolute about free speech and certain rights. And so it was neat to have her on the podcast, and we'll play a little bit. It was.
Yeah, and I was fascinated because, as you know, I'm not per se a Democrat, but I certainly didn't vote for Trump. Let me put it to you that way. And she and I actually saw eye to eye on, I tend to be, in all but a handful of cases, a free speech absolutist, so I was impressed by that. But I was also impressed by her take on just politics in general. She essentially kind of gave credence to everything you've been saying, which is it's a cesspool in Washington, D.C. There's a reason it was built on top of a swamp. And so that clip was quite something.
Yeah, and about who has claim to the truth, right?
Yeah. I understand speech is speech. I will advocate for it to my dying breath. But what do you suppose, or do you have an argument as to where the proper line is in dealing with a global pandemic and free speech?
So I think I'm going to stick with my absolutism here, because...
You are? Okay.
I am. I will. The first thing I would say is there's no public health exception to the U.S. Constitution.
Fair enough.
And again, this is the way I try to put it to people sometimes. You don't seem to have it, but
I do. Let me lay all my cards on the table,
okay,
and I will be the first person to tell you, Obama's my guy. I love him. I understand. Okay. I completely understand how Trump got elected. That doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I find him to be unacceptable, both as a person, a human being, a politician, a president. But again, I understand why, given the choice that we had with Kamala Harris and he, or Hillary Clinton and he, people chose the devil we know as opposed to the one we don't. I get that. To that end, though, this has nothing to do with Trump. It really has to do with what is, and I respect that you're sticking with the free speech absolutism, because I tend to be that way, but you can't run into a crowded movie theater and yell fire. And my thing is in a public health crisis, I'm going to defer, but it turns out they lied to us. To your boyfriend Jamie's point, we were being deceived. So, maybe I'm talking myself into a circle here. What is the line as a...
Yeah,
you imply there is a line, John. Like, I guess, John, you're implying there is a line, right? There may not be a line in this case. It's just speech. But when nobody knows the truth, who's censoring, right?
Fair.
Well, and that's the thing, and I think that it gets back to, and the reason why I brought Trump up just, was to say that oftentimes what I say is, would you really want Trump being the one to be able to say to you what you can say and what you can't, and what's true and what is not?
Yeah.
And my thing is that, part of the challenge for me, like I said, I went straight to government sources to try to find the science to support what they were saying, and it's not there. And so me being able to say that is really vital, Maybe we wouldn't have had kids with we wouldn't have had to revise our developmental benchmarks for children if we didn't shut the schools down
No, yeah.
based, okay, if people would have been allowed to speak more freely and if a free debate happened. And I think that's the challenge is even in a public health emergency situation, I guess it comes down to for me, that I have to trust people to make the right decision based on a full understanding of
Have
the
you been,
facts.
as Seinfeld says, have you been to the Motor Vehicle Bureau lately? It's a leper colony down there. No, I agree with you. I'm not disputing that, but let me play a hypothesis, and how would you respond? Because I did this to Timmy. I am 100% on your side as it relates to that. We should have triaged the most vulnerable. Do you have comorbidities? Are you over the age of 85? These kinds of things. It's clear even at the time they were arguing for it. It's clear in hindsight. Why are the kids staying home? My kids are bright. They are going to be fine. But the amount of damage, tangible damage we did to school-age kids is just appalling. To that end, however, play this theory out with me. What happens if they say kids can go back to school, and one kid, 6, 8, 10 years old, somewhere in the middle of America, Kansas, gets COVID and dies? Could you imagine the political blowback, whether it's Republican or Democrat, of that happening? I understand life happens like that, and you may not even be able to prove it. I'm just saying, in today's hyper-intensive environment of television and all these other things, it could just explode, could it not?
I think that there could be a lot of things. Yeah, I think that
You understand what I'm asking, right?
yeah, the
They did it
internet,
politically
social
because it was
media
easy.
environment is challenging. And here's one of the things I also found with a lot of people on the left. Sometimes it's really, really hard to have principles and stick by them.
There you go.
And
Principles are only relevant when they're inconvenient. Yeah.
and that's when it's inconvenient. And my heart would break for the parents of that child, but I also would say my heart is broken for the parents of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of children who can never get those years back and were never at risk, at significant risk to begin with. And I think that's the other thing is that there's always going to be some risk, and if you were really, really worried about it, keep your kid home.
Well, Timmy, we were honored to, it's been 30 years since O.J. Simpson. Still trying to get a couple people on from that case. Maybe we will have some to unveil in 2026. And 30 years since, unfortunately, Oklahoma City. And we were honored to host first Randy Coyne, who was the attorney, one of the attorneys that represented the convicted and now deceased killer, Timothy McVeigh. But we were also honored to host Bob Ricks, who was the special agent in charge, who has lived history over the last 30 plus years. He was on the scene in Waco in 1992, in 1993, and then in Oklahoma City. He was the special agent in charge in Oklahoma City after the bombing of the Murrah Federal Building. So his knowledge of history, his presentation about the investigation, and particularly the people that he called out as his heroes, the people that just didn't get the press like he did, I thought was anything in particular. We're going to be interviewing Mr. Ricks coming up. Is there anything in particular I should ask him? And from one agency to another, she said, "Do you think we've learned much in 30 years?" And I'll just leave it with that. Do you think we've learned much?
I don't think so. I think I keep saying I think we're going back and reinvent the flat tire.
Why did you say that, sir?
We forget sometimes who our true enemies are. We will try to create ones that are not really our true threats to our country. We impose roadblocks. For example, 9/11. It was many of the politicians that got involved. I believe they thought the FBI was a bigger threat to their longevity than international terrorists were. And they set up fences that prevented us from talking to the CIA, and not only to the CIA, they put roadblocks to prevent us from even talking to other agents that were involved in counterterrorism matters that criminal agents couldn't talk to. And as you know, the terrorists are, by their nature, are criminals. They're involved in all kinds of criminal activity while they're doing this. They're not just waiting to carry out their terrorist activity. They really can't resist themselves. They're going to steal and lie and rape and assault and to prevent that type of communications. But we had information sufficient in our files if we would have been able to share it with CIA and our own FBI people, that I think we could have put the whole thing together.
September 11th, you mean?
Yeah, but because of the roadblocks that had put in between us. When I was deputy assistant director, I was in charge of the counterterrorism program. I was with the CIA at least weekly, and sometimes more often than that. We carried out operations throughout the whole world, and it was only after that they decided that, well, that's not a good thing. Why should we share information? That'd be awful. Some politician's name might come up. So we had to make sure that didn't happen. But what I think is, it's almost like, seems like every 10, 15 years, it's like we start all over again. Like there's no memory of what's transpired. I think the lessons of 9/11 have already been forgotten.
It was interesting to see what he thought we learned, right? And if we learned anything. And something we learned this year.
Were we reinventing the broken wheel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this year we did a podcast pretty soon after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I thought
that one hit you hard. I remember that. Yeah.
It did hit me hard. Yeah. And so in that spirit,
was it Charlie Kirk, or was it that he was controversial, or was it that he was young? What was it that? Why do you suppose? Just put your psychiatrist hat on. Why did that one hit you so hard? I mean, obviously an assassination. We've condemned it. We continue to condemn political violence and so forth. But that one hit you harder than most, I think. And I'm curious as to why you think that was the case.
I think it was because, in some degree, he was doing what I think we need more of, which is engaging in dialogue in spaces where there's the potential to meet people who believe differently than you, and he died because of it.
Yeah, while doing it, no less.
While doing it, yeah. And so that hit me hard. And so at that point, I did my hero segment from that episode, which you will hear now. So my hero, John, is a rather remarkable man. He didn't go to university or study with scholars. He traveled about, talking and teaching. He talked about things like God, values, truth. There was love, and there's also admonishment. Day in and day out, he was in the public square, answering questions, engaging. He drew crowds of people who heard his message. They'd try to trap him in debates, and there were powerful factions who didn't like what he had to say. They accused him of various things. They even misrepresented him. Then, in his early 30s, he was put to death. He's my hero of the week.
I have a hunch who you're speaking of, too.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. I like it, Tim. I like it. We also, because, politics by its very essence can be sort of depressing, for lack of a better term, right? Mm-hmm. And you are a psychiatrist, so I would imagine you kind of need a break every once in a while. Mm-hmm. You had proffered the idea that we should do an episode on hope. Why do we have hope? And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was one of our better episodes. It was pretty recent in the last couple months here in 2025, but we talked about hope. And one of the reasons I have hope, and that's what this clip is about, and it's particularly about immigration and things of that nature. So just one of the many reasons that I consider myself to be blessed and lucky to have been born in the United States. I still think, in spite of all of its scars, it's the greatest country on earth. But roll it, Timmy. Mine's a little bit more sort of esoteric, if you will, but I am actually very hopeful, and I tend to be reminded of this with relative frequency, of human ingenuity and what is affectionately referred to in economic terms as creative destruction. And one of the things I always remind people is, think of the life. You and I you're almost 50, I'm 50. Think of the life, or think of how much things have evolved since your grandparents or even great-grandparents were born, what they have seen. two world wars, the advent of mass air transportation. Think of the pharmacological development, whether it be the birth control pill, antidepressants, heart medicines, all these sorts of things. You know, there's a funny line in the movie, The Ballad of Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. It's a silly, goofy, NASCAR movie, but he jokes, with the advances in modern science and my high income, it's not insurmountable to imagine I can live to 200, 250. And I'm just reminded of that. It's terrible to see people being put out of work. And, it's one of these things that they always say, I guarantee the person who was the last person making, buggy whips probably made the best goddamn buggy whip in the world. But it changed because we invented the automobile, right?
Yeah.
And look at how much that's changed our life. And just think about this. The wealthiest person in the United States, possibly the world, there's some debate on this, is Jeff Bezos. The company he created is 30 years old. And it's remarkable how much it's a testament to human ingenuity. You can never, and I think it's particularly acute in the United States. That's not me being sort of jingoistic or nationalistic. It's just, I think there's something that's in the water system, if you will, in our country. We're the world's largest economy by a large factor and only 4% of the world's population. And I'm just continually reminded of human ingenuity and creative destruction. It's fascinating for me to think what my great-grandchildren will be experiencing. You know what I mean? And when
Absolutely.
they're 50 years old.
Yeah. Well, just 2 points. Hot running water and music.
Right?
And music,
yeah.
right?
Hot running water.
Yeah.
That didn't exist 70 years ago.
No,
even 50 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of the planet, right? But I can walk in and I can just turn a knob and have hot running water. That's a luxury. Or be able to listen to essentially any, you have to stream it and pay, of course, but listen to any song you like. A king would have a band, or
Right,
somebody
right.
on retainer, right? Only the wealthiest, or you'd play an instrument, right? If you wanted to hear it. It's so amazing, just the things
You've said it before. You live like a king.
We do. I live
years
like a
ago.
king.
Yeah. But, one of the things I do remind people, and this is one of the things I'm going to kind of harp on because this is going to be a reason for hope as well. Talked about illegal immigration before. I understand the problem with illegal immigration. I do. But immigrants really are the backbone, the heartbeat of this country, if you will. And I remind people of the Fortune 500 companies in this country. Half of them, almost 300 of them, were founded by either first generation or children of first generation immigrants. There is a direct correlation with that. You said there's a direct line between being on social media and your well-being. There's a direct correlation between embracing immigration and having business and creative destruction. I just think that it's something that we got to get a handle on, and I'm hopeful that we will, because I'm never disappointed by trusting human ingenuity.
Yeah, and to your point, John, I think sometimes people who come here can see what we have from afar because they don't have, they don't have the freedom, or they don't have the opportunity, right? And they appreciate it even more than we do.
I have a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist who has said for years that truly the happiest people in the world are people with limited or no means, because everything is a pleasant surprise to them.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of that. Yeah.
And I think that sort of refreshes, and builds America over time. I totally agree with that one.
Yeah.
And sometimes, John, we're just smart asses on this show.
No, change the pronoun there. I would say it's 70-30 though.
Okay.
You're a smart. Yeah. I just laugh at you, but yeah, absolutely.
So we poke fun at things, and so I'm going to include a clip where we talk about this trend of trying to have representation in casting in Hollywood. So you will hear the Ball Blind and buddies doing something they do too. So having a laugh at ourselves.
Absolutely.
Representation is a core value at 21st Century Studios.
We decided that it was well past time for a blind person to play Daredevil. Of course, that did complicate some of the stunts.
No! The other way! Look out! Uh-oh! Stop! Stop! Not the window! That's going to hurt.
This has been. People tell me what's your podcast about? I said it's two dipshits that have been arguing for 30 plus years. Just we put it on tape. So, well, Timmy, that was fun. I enjoy that, and I always enjoy going back and hearing. Do you listen to every episode? I listen to probably 3 out of every 4 of our episodes whenever I can, just to see. And of course, I always tell myself, John, you got to let Timmy talk more. You got to stop talking so much. You got to do this. You got to do that. Blah blah. But I do enjoy every once in a while going back and hearing things and going, oh, I don't remember making that point. Do you ever do that?
I go back to so when I edit them, I wind up listening all the way through.
Oh yeah, by definition.
At least once, yeah. So they stick. But yeah, I have gone back and I'm like, wow, that was pretty good. So,
yeah, I was pretty smart there.
Yeah.
I wasn't as big a wise ass as I thought.
Yeah.
Well, Timmy, all kidding aside, we usually sign off and I always say, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances. But as today is the 21st of December, I want to wish you and yours and all of the listeners out there, all 12 or 13 of you, a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year. Enjoy your holiday season. From us at Bald Blinded Buddies. It was a great year, and we look forward to 2026 and what's to come. So, Merry Christmas, Timmy.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, John. I want to wish a happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody. Especially to our families who put up with us doing this stuff, running bits by them and all that ideas. To all our listeners and the folks who've been generous and given us their time just to talk with us. If anybody's listening, in our dozen. Merry Christmas.
In our dozen.
Thank you for that.
In our single digits. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
no, we've had people reach out. We had
absolutely.
we have a president in exile that's asked to come on.
Yeah. No, this is exciting. So so we look forward to talking with you next year, folks. Take care out there.